Hello, hi, welcome once again to M5's English language learning program, Let's Speak English. I'm Gav Duncan and I'm here on your TV to help you learn English. Now, are you sitting comfortably? Yes? Good. And are you ready for today's lesson? Yes? Good. Okay, well let's learn English together. And good afternoon to you all. How are you today? Is everything okay? Are you sitting down, relaxed, feeling warm and ready for today's English lesson? You are? Well, that's great news. Okay then, what are we waiting for? Let's get stuck in to today's lesson. Tuesday, the second day of the week. Only a few more days until the weekend rolls around again. Okay, gods of English, blue team, assemble! Are you ready? Yes? Well, then let's begin. Now, do you remember what we talked about in yesterday's lesson? I know, you're all members of the blue team, aren't you? You're all members of one of the subgroups of the gods of English. So, of course you remember what we talked about in yesterday's lesson. I'm kidding. I know that you all remember. Yesterday, we saw Loretta got to meet Mr. Williams. They had a meeting to sign an employment contract. I'm sure you all remember what a contract is, but let's just check it together once more. A contract is a legal agreement. It's a piece of paper which says what two people agree to do. Both people sign the contract to show that they agree with the contract and with what the contract says. Because the contract is legal, there's a guarantee connected to it. If one person doesn't do what they agreed to do, the other person could go to a law court and ask for compensation. If someone wants to get compensation, they have to go to a law court where a judge decides what sort of compensation is fair. The agreement, or contract, states what each person agrees to do. If Mr. Williams doesn't do what he agreed to do, then Loretta can go to a court and ask a judge for compensation. If Loretta doesn't do what she agreed to do, then Mr. Williams can do the same. He can go to a court and ask a judge for compensation. The contract acts as a guarantee. Do what we agreed or pay me compensation. The contract that Mr. Williams and Loretta will sign is an employment contract. It's connected to Loretta working for the hotel. The contract states what Loretta has to do and what she can and can't do. The contract states how many hours Loretta has to work and how much money the hotel has to pay her. The contract states a lot of things about the relationship between the hotel and Loretta. It's an employment contract between an employer, the hotel, and an employee, Loretta. Employee is just a synonym for worker, but it sounds nicer. Worker doesn't sound very professional or very nice. Employee is a much nicer word. If someone wants to get compensation, they have to go to a law court where a judge decides what sort of compensation is fair. The agreement or contract states what each person agrees to do. If Mr. Williams doesn't do what he agreed to do, then Loretta can go to a court and ask a judge for compensation. If Loretta doesn't do what she agreed to do, then Mr. Williams can do the same. He can go to a court and ask a judge for compensation. If someone doesn't do what they agreed to do, then the other person can take them to court to get compensation. In the court, the two people, the parties to the contract, have to show the judge that they did not do anything wrong, that they did what the contract said. The judge listens to them and decides if anyone should get compensation. The two people, the parties to the contract, have to prove that they did everything they agreed to. They have to show proof that the other person didn't do what they agreed to. The contract acts as a guarantee. Do what we agreed, or the judge will tell you to pay me compensation. Now, in the contract, the most important things to pay attention to are the obligations. Things that Loretta is obliged to do. If you are obliged to do something, then it is something that you have to do. In Loretta's employment contract, there's a list of things that she has to do. These things are her obligations. She can't choose to do or not do these things. They are obligations. She has to do them. Now, when we think about obligation in English, there's a couple of words which we always think of. Before we look at those, however, I'd like to talk about the idea of necessity. Necessity is a word which means that something is needed, something is vital. If we haven't got this thing, then nothing else will work, for example. This thing is vital. This thing is necessary. We need it. We can think about the idea of necessity with a car. For a car, fuel is vital. If the car hasn't got any fuel, it can't move. We can't drive it. Fuel is vital. Fuel is necessary. Fuel is essential. Necessity is a noun which means that something is required, something is needed, something is necessary. People need food. It's a necessity. It's required. People need water. It's vital for life. We need it. We require it. It's necessary. Now, when we talk about things being necessary in English, we also talk about these things being obligatory. Just like we heard with Loretta's contract, there are certain things which are obligatory, obligations, things that Loretta has to do. These things are necessary, they're required, they're vital, they're essential. She has to do them. Now, did you hear what I said? I said that she has to do them. This is one way of talking about obligation. In English, when we talk about obligation, we use have to and must. Have to and must are practically the same, but there is a difference. Must is normally used when the person who is speaking thinks it is necessary. Have to is normally used when the obligation comes from outside. Let me give you an example. If you're driving a car, then you have to wear a seatbelt. I have to wear a seatbelt when I'm driving. You have to wear a seatbelt when you're driving. He has to wear a seatbelt when he's driving. When someone is driving, they have to wear a seatbelt. Now, we're using have to because the obligation is not coming from inside. It's not me who thinks it's necessary to wear a seatbelt. Here, the obligation to wear a seatbelt comes from outside. It comes from the law. Parliament decided to pass a law that drivers have to wear seatbelts. So, the obligation comes from outside. It's not the driver that thinks it's required, but Parliament made a law, and the police will punish you if you're driving without a seatbelt. Now, let's look at another situation. Tomorrow is my sister's birthday. I must remember to phone her and wish her a happy birthday. Now, in this situation, the obligation is not coming from the outside. In this situation, the obligation is coming from within, from me. I think that it's necessary to remember to phone my sister. No one else. The obligation comes from within me. Okay, now let's have a quick look at the forms for must. Well, must is very simple to use. We take a subject, I, you, Alfredo, Doreen, add must, and then add a verb in the infinitive, like this. I must go to the dentist, my tooth just fell out. You must learn to drive. There's no bus service around here. So, in all of those situations, the person who is speaking thinks that there is an obligation. In the first example, I think that I must go to the dentist to replace my tooth. In the second sentence, the person who is speaking thinks it is necessary for you to learn to drive. It will make your life much easier. Okay, and now I must leave the stage and make way for your friend and mine. Ladies and gents, here she is, our very own Enid. Take it away, Enid.
Well, hello, people. Hello, hello. And how are you all today? Fine, fine, good. And me? Well, thanks for asking. Yes, I'm fine too. Although I did have a little bit of trouble yesterday. My pet pheasant, Keith, ate something which disagreed with him. Do you know that phrase, to eat something which disagrees with you? No? Oh, well, in that case, I'd better explain. We usually use the verb to disagree as the opposite of the verb to agree. Rupert and Archibald, for example. They both agree that the Ponzi Peacock is the best restaurant in town. Rupert thinks that the Ponzi Peacock is the best restaurant in town, and Archibald agrees with him. Rupert and Archibald think that the Ponzi Peacock is the best restaurant in town. Okay, so we know that they agree on that, but they don't agree on what the best food and drink combination in the Ponzi Peacock is. Rupert thinks that the best food and drink combination in the Ponzi Peacock is a large steak served with chips, you know, fried potatoes, and a pint of beer. Archibald disagrees. However, he doesn't think that a large steak with chips and a pint of beer is the best food and drink combination. He disagrees with Rupert. Archibald thinks that the best food and drink combination that the Ponzi Peacock offers is the fried fish and chips with a bottle of champagne. Now, the boys disagree on what the best food and drink at the Ponzi Peacock is, but yesterday, my pet pheasant, Keith, ate something. After he ate it, he fell ill and vomited all over the house. Keith ate something that disagreed with him. The food and Keith didn't agree, and so Keith was ill and threw up. He vomited. Thankfully, he's better now, so I'd better get home to make him some soup. That's all from me. Toodaloo, pip pip, chitty bye.
And she's off, rushing back home to look after Keith. I hope Keith feels better soon. Poor Keith, eating something which disagreed with him. I like Keith. He's the funniest pheasant I know. Anyway, we've reached the end of another lesson. So all that's left is for me to say thanks for watching, and remember to check out the other videos and the vocabulary from all our lessons at www.m5tv.hu. I'm Gav Duncan. I'm not Keith the Pheasant, and I'll see you tomorrow for some more English. See you later. Bye.